Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Thank you for joining us. Merci d'être parmi nous aujourd'hui. My name is Kina Leclerc and I will be your moderator. Je m'appelle Kina Leclerc et je serai l'animatrice de ce point de presse. I will now invite each agency to ask their question. You may ask one question with one follow-up. Par ordre alphabétique, j'invite maintenant chaque organisme à poser une question et une question de suivi. So we will now start with Joanne Chianello at CBC Ottawa, followed by Perushka at City News Ottawa.
Hi, good afternoon. This question is about the Lansdowne new plan for the mayor. We are hearing that there is an ask of $330 million for new north stands and an arena. You know, if we go back a dozen years, we didn't replace the north stands then. Now we're going to pay a lot more money for them. I'm wondering, Mayor, if you can comment on that and also on whether you support in general, the plan that's coming forward, we understand later today in a report to the FedCo.
Thank you, Joanne, for the question. I think this is the natural progression of Lansdowne Park and its evolution, providing more housing, more green space, protecting the green space, better sports, recreation, cultural facilities on the site, more retail opportunities. And the objective we have is to continue the momentum we created about a decade ago by bringing some life back to Lansdowne. And one of the areas where I think we need to do a better job is getting more people to live on site. So that's one of the reasons why I support more housing on the site, including affordable housing options for people. Secondly, with respect to the costs, obviously public infrastructure is the responsibility of the public, but we believe that there is a way of achieving that, as we've done in other arrangements where we use the tax upload, air rights, a ticket surcharge, and so on, to ensure that it remains revenue neutral for taxpayers, but it gets built, and it gets built in a timely fashion.
You know, it's hard to talk about this when we haven't seen the details of it yet, right? So there are so many people who said the plan for Lansdowne wasn't going to bring enough people to Lansdowne. Yes, on event day there were, and when there's a CFL game, it's very lively, great place. But that the plan didn't work. So just wondering if you can talk about how, you know, you talk about it's going to be revenue neutral. There's lots of people who say it wasn't really revenue neutral. We put a lot of public money into the stadium. We're putting a lot more, like 3 times the amount we put into the stadium the first time around. And there are people who are skeptics. So what do you say to them?
Well, I think you have to go back in history and look at what Lansdowne was costing taxpayers prior to the revitalization. We received a grand total of $0 at 0 cents in property tax dollars. Now we receive millions. We now have a reduced overhead cost because OSEG takes responsibility for these major infrastructure projects from an operational point of view, whether it's the stadium or the other retail and commercial space. So Lansdowne really was a ghost town. You could see tumbleweed going through it any day. There was nothing taking place there unless you had a ticket. That was the only reason you went to Lansdowne. That ticket got you in to a football game or a 67th game. So what we've tried to do, and I think we've done it very successfully, is we've created a destination that has created over 1,000 jobs, that brings money into the city instead of costing taxpayers money. And the next logical step is to replace the north side stands and a revitalized civic center, event center that is much more in tune with what musicians and traveling artists need, a smaller, more compact venue of about 5,600 seats. So, we're going to have, as always in Ottawa, a lot of debate about Lansdowne, but there's no question that I think the success of the Southside stands, the football team, the soccer team, as well as multi-sport events that have taken place have been a real asset, not just to the partnership, but to the taxpayers and to the merchants who need customers on Bank Street in the Glebe and Old Ottawa South. Thank you.
We get that in French, Mayor? Thank you.
Sorry. Oui, je pense que c'est...
Yes, I think it's a good proposal for Lansdowne because we will protect the green space for the residents and visitors, and we'll be replacing the seating at the south end. And for me, it's important to continue to attract people to live on this site. Maybe 3,500, 4,000 more people in apartment buildings. And that's good. This applies not only to Lansdowne, but it's good for the businesses around in the Glebe and Old Ottawa South.
We will now go to Perushka at City News Ottawa, followed by Natalie at CTV Ottawa.
Hi there. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes,
okay.
We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Well, my question is for Mayor Watson. I was just wondering, with the motorcycle convoy coming up this weekend, a lot of residents are skeptical that, this might be similar to the Freedom Convoy, for example. I mean, what are you doing for residents, or how are you reassuring residents that, we can trust the city again, we can trust police again, to make sure that, it doesn't turn out to be, the Freedom Convoy, for example? How are you reassuring residents that this is not going to be the same thing?
Thank you for the question. I think first and foremost, I believe that we're better organized, and we have a plan that has been worked on for the last couple of weeks. We had more lead time knowing about this rally as opposed to the truckers convoy. We heard from the chief the plan of action to protect both residents and business community in and around the downtown core, and as well as the Byward Market. And we have all hands on deck on this. This has been all-consuming. Emergency Operations Center is up and running under the leadership of Steve Kanalakis, Kim Ayot, and our chief. We're all here with us today, along with other key players with the city personnel. So no one wants a repeat of what happened during the truckers convoy, and that's why I believe that we're more proactive and better prepared to deal with the issue. And we have great support from our OPP colleagues, as well as the RCMP and other municipal police forces, working hand in hand with bylaw. And there's a zero tolerance policy. If you're parked illegally with your motorcycle, you're going to be ticketed and you're possibly going to be towed. So it's not worth your while coming all the way here to have your vehicle put in the impound because you were parked in the no stopping zone. So we're asking those individuals who have the right to freely come into our city to be respectful of both our residents and our businesses and our infrastructure, and not to provoke some of the kind of racist, sexist, homophobic nonsense that we saw with the truckers convoy a few months ago. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, my next question is for Dr. Etches. I'm not sure if she's available. But I was just, I was looking at, we're seeing the wastewater levels in Ottawa, kind of stabilizing now. We've reached that, the peak. Are you concerned that, those wastewater levels could go up perhaps in the fall or the winter, as we, come indoors and, people return back to school and whatever? I mean, are you concerned about those levels, or do you think they're going to be stabilized as we go through the fall and winter?
Well, thank you for your question. And looking ahead, I think many people just are tired of hearing about COVID, very understandably. What we are aiming for now and into the future is to be aware of what the level of COVID is in our environment, and then to adapt our behaviors to add protection and caution if the levels are higher. So I do think the levels will fluctuate over the coming rest of the year. I'm expecting the summer to be a very positive time with lower levels where we need less protection. In the fall, it is likely we often see respiratory illnesses increase as people come back together inside. So the things we know people can do are to stay up to date on their vaccinations. That's a good phrase, I think, to keep using now, to stay up to date on your vaccines, because it means having all the recommended doses, which may change over time. There may be additional boosters recommended for older adults or people who are immunocompromised. And we will need to know what's up to date for me and stay up to date. Certainly, as the levels may rise again, we know that being careful indoors, to wear masks, to be careful with our contacts indoors, increasing ventilation, these are all things we can turn to that have worked. And so our job at OPH will be to keep people aware of what's happening, what's the level of COVID, and what can we do about it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We will now go to Natalie Van Roy at City of Ottawa, followed by Michelle Carbert at Globe and Mail.
Good afternoon. This question is for Deputy Interim Chief Steve Bell. Can you provide more detail about what the vehicle restrictions will look like in the exclusion zone? So will there be checkpoints? Do people need to bring an ID?
So thank you for the question. So what residents can expect to see is a couple different layers of response. So first of all, we've identified with our city partners the actual exclusionary zone that will exist, and we're actively publicly letting people know the disruptions, the areas that they'll see those disruptions in. So what we will have is a mix of equipment supplied by the city to actually barricade access to certain roads, as well as officer presence in certain areas to monitor and allow for traffic in and out of the areas. We have a really an in-depth plan that's well resourced and works with our city partners to make sure that we can control the access as we need through the area that we've identified as the exclusionary zone.
And second question, will people be able to go downtown, to go out to the market for the afternoon, to go out for dinner? And if so, how will the exclusion zone be enforced? How will police keep the bikes out?
So as we indicated, there will absolutely be pedestrian access allowed to that area. The exclusionary zone that we've identified is specifically around vehicular traffic. So people can walk in and out of that area. In terms of how that vehicular traffic is monitored, as I indicated, it's both between barricades, hard barricades that we have through equipment, jersey barriers, fencing, that type of fixed structure, as well as officer presence in different areas to monitor the traffic and allow the traffic that may be able to flow through there and stop the traffic as we need moving ahead through the event.
If I could just ask, one other comment. This is also a good opportunity for members of the public, if they're coming down to the market or coming down to Centertown to shop or to eat, it would be to take public transit. You know, take the O train, take the bus service. That's going to have unfettered access, Chief, to the area. And it's a great way to see our LRT system in place. You go into the market, you get off at the Ritos station, and you walk literally 1 minute and you're in the Byward Market. So it's an opportunity for members of the public to continue to support the small business community in and around the area that has been most heavily impacted as a result of the truckers convoy, to come and support these businesses by hopping out of your car and going onto a bus or directly to the train and heading downtown. So there's lots of stations in the downtown core for LRT, plus a couple stations in the Byward Market. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on, we will go to Michelle at the Globe and Mail, et ensuite on ira à Julien Paquette à Le Droit. Michelle, are you on the line? Okay, on va aller à Julien Paquette.
Hi there, yes, I am here.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Thank you very much. Apologies for that. Thanks for taking our questions today. This question is for Interim Chief Steve Bell. You're saying that the RCMP are involved in conversations as well as intelligence agencies ahead of this weekend's anticipated rally. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're hearing from them? And how those discussions are different from those discussions you may have had ahead of the trucker convoy earlier this year? Thank you.
So as I spoke about, we have really good connections with our intelligence partners, gathering information from across the country. That's our RCMP, OPP, CSIS, other national security, as well as local police agencies and our CBSA. We gather that intelligence. We continue to gather that intelligence and information, and I can tell you we've absolutely funneled that information into our plan. Beyond the information that we're receiving, you're seeing a different posture from us in terms of creating exclusionary zones, creating zones where we're not allowing vehicles. So not only are we gathering more broadly accessed information through our partners, we're also taking a different stance and a different posture in terms of how we manage protest demonstrations and events in and around the downtown core.
Thank you. And as a follow-up, obviously, public trust was eroded when the police, with their response to the convoy earlier this year. To be frank, can you explain why residents should believe that your assurances this time around?
Yes, so thanks for that question. I'm actually a firm believer trust is earned. And I do absolutely realize that trust was eroded and broken during the last protest. We're working hard through our planning, through our open communications to make sure that we as a policing organization and we as a city earn back the trust of our community so that they know that we're here to keep them safe, to make sure that they have access to their streets and to continue to promote community safety and well-being. So we've been active in discussing and communicating how we understand the impact that these events have on the community, and that has been front of mind in all of our planning as we've moved ahead. And I believe that through the planning, through the communications, and ultimately through the event unrolling, we'll be able to earn back that trust that we desperately want to have.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Nous allons maintenant passer à Julien Paquette à Le Droit.
We're giving the floor to Julien Paquette, Le Droit, and then to the Citizen. First question, Mr. Mayor, the province of Ontario will table its budget. Do you have any expectations?
L'année dernière, le transport commun, l'appui pour la troisième étape de le train léger et le logement abordable pour les résidents qui cherchent une maison, un appartement.
We also had support for people that are looking for an affordable housing. So I would say these are two main priorities. I think it's the same for any big cities in the province of Ontario. I don't know what will be in the document. We'll look at it on Thursday. We hope to have funding for transit, not only for the third phase, but also for the other priorities that we have in that file. Thank you. Can you repeat in English, please?
Yeah, obviously, we continue to have the same two basic priorities when asking for funding from other orders of government. One is continued support and increased support for transit, public transit. Particularly, obviously, we're anxious to see a commitment from the provincial government on phase 3 of LRT that would go to Canada, Stittsville, and Barrhaven. We did get that commitment, as you know, from the Prime Minister at the federal level during the last federal election, so we're hoping that the Premier follows suit. And obviously, affordable housing continues to be a challenge for every major city in Canada. We have over 12,000 people on our wait list looking for an affordable house or apartment. And we would hope to see increased opportunities for programs that our city can apply for to build more affordable housing to get that number of 12,000 down significantly. Thank you.
Merci. Mon autre question, je ne sais pas qui serait la
Follow-up
meilleure.
question. I don't know who will be the best person to answer it. It's about the rally this weekend, the protests. Can you explain a little bit better how the exclusion zone will work? Will you allow the convoy to go through some section? But at the same time, you are expecting guests in the downtown hotels. They will possibly want to park at the Chateau Laurier to have access to their room. Will they be allowed to go through? Who will have the right to go through and who will be blocked? Thank you so much for your question. Kimayot. We will have an exclusion zone. We are expecting some protesters. The agent will let them go through and walk around. Whoever's coming here for the Rolling Thunder protests, they will not be able to go through. The agents will use their judgment. Whoever lives in the exclusion zone will have access. They will be able to pass through. So there will be no problems for them. But for the protesters, they will be blocked if they want to go into the exclusion zone.
Merci beaucoup. We will now go to John Willing at the Citizen et ensuite Frédéric Pépin à Radio-Canada.
Thanks, Kina. Mr. Ayette, I just want to make sure I understood your answer to Julian. So if someone is part of the Rolling Thunder event on a motorcycle this weekend, can that person enter the exclusion zone on their bike if they're staying at a hotel in the exclusion zone and they plan to park their bike at that hotel?
Yeah, and in English, I'd be happy to let the police chief answer that question. But yes, they will be able to access their hotel within the exclusion zone. But once they're participating with the parade, if you will, or with the majority of the bikes, then they will no longer be able to go in and out. But once they show that they have proof of a reason for being within the exclusion zone, the police officers will allow them to enter.
Okay. For Chief Bell, have you communicated publicly the route that you plan to direct the, for lack of a better term, convoy into the city from the east? We've seen maps suggesting that the route will be, for example, down Montreal Road, Rideau, and then swinging up down across the Mackenzie King Bridge, and then south on Elgin, then back down Laurier out to the highway. Is that something you're going to make public so people can have some assurances as to what they might see or hear over the weekend?
Yes, absolutely. We've indicated through the week that we continue to provide information as it was finalized. It's important for us to nail down exactly what the route will be, finalize what we're establishing with it, working with our city partners, working with the councillors to establish where we plan for it to go. And at that point, we will be providing that information publicly. As soon as we have it, that will be put out, and we expect that likely to be tomorrow or Friday at some point.
Thank you very much. Nous allons maintenant passer à Frédéric Pépin à Radio-Canada.
Frédéric Pépin, CBC. My question is for Monsieur Ayette. Maybe Chief Bell. During the last protest, one of the main issues that we had was the noise and the horning. We had to have a court injunction. So the noise might be once more an issue because of the mufflers, the modified mufflers and the horns. What can we do to prevent excessive noise, especially that we won't have a court injunction this time? Thank you for your question. Last time, it was a continuous noise, days after days, weeks after weeks. At night, people couldn't sleep. This weekend, the situation is slightly different. They will have specific hours when the
motorcycles are coming into the cities, going through and leaving. So it will be, let's say, Saturday afternoon. We will be able to monitor the level of noise in the evening and over the rest of the weekend. We do expect that everything will be finished this weekend. It will not go on for weeks, days and weeks. We will have enough policemen in the street. We will also have our municipal agent. They will be there to issue tickets for excessive noise. So there are no reasons to go over the allotted time. I have a question for Mayor Watson. Okay, we're talking about Montreal Road, Elgin Road, passing right in front of City Hall. You're talking about an exclusion zone, but there will be a lot of, let's say, movement of these protesters. Do you trust in the plan? Do you trust what's been established? Yes, I do, Frederick. I do trust the plan and I do trust city staff. The city staff have been working with Mr. Kanalakis and Mr. Ayat, as well as other people responsible for transit. This weekend, we had more time to plan before the weekend event, before the protest. It was not the same situation with the truck convoy. Like I said previously, I do trust the plan that it will be put forward. Is the plan perfect? Probably not. We will face some challenges over the weekend. We will have support from RCMP, from OPP, as well as other municipalities to help the men and women that are working within the Ottawa Police Service. Thank you so much.
This concludes our media availability. Ceci conclut notre point de presse. Have a great day.
Then pass it twice through a sieve. Couldn't be easier.